Good afternoon. Happy Friday, June 2nd. It's June. Summer is here. And stop me if you've heard this one before, but mortgage rates extremely volatile this past week. I feel like this is every week since maybe the beginning of 2022. Lots of volatility in the market, lots of factors influencing mortgage interest rates. Let's get right to it. And what happened this week? Well, we saw some improvement at the early part of the week. This coming on the heels of the agreement that was reached by Speaker McCarthy, President Biden, to raise the debt limit, allowing our federal government to not run out of money as early as June the 5th. Thankfully, that passed through Congress, that passed through the Senate. It's going to be signed into law. We now have that off our plate, and we saw mortgage-backed securities rally on that news Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of this week, recapturing a lot of the losses that we had last week in anticipation that maybe we are headed for a default on the federal debt. We are going to avoid that, thank goodness. So we're really recapturing that lost ground. But today we get popped right back in the face again with more negative news, getting back to the environment where we shift our focus from the debt ceiling and we go back to inflation and more accurately, jobs and wages. And really what we're talking here about is our Federal Reserve. Our Federal Reserve for the longest time now has been banging the drum that inflation must come down. Inflation must come down. We've got to put inflation back toward the Fed's target rate of 2%. That's been happening. We've been trending that direction. And if you've been watching this series every single Friday, we've been reporting on that month over month over month, we've seen inflation start to come down. Whether you're measuring it by consumer price index or personal consumption expenditures, inflation has been on the decline. We're not going to be able to unwind record high inflation, 40-year high inflation in a matter of a couple of months. It's going to take a little bit of time, and inflation has been declining smartly. Contrast to that, though, our Federal Reserve has changed its tune and changed its message. Everything that they told us last fall now doesn't necessarily hold true because they've shifted their tone to talk about jobs. And specifically, our Federal Reserve seems to think that they need to drive up unemployment, drive up joblessness in order to get inflation under control. They want a job loss recession. Make no bones about it. This is not up for debate. They've said it. They want a job loss recession to put inflation back to the target rate of 2%. Never mind that inflation's already declining. This is what they've said, like it or not. This is the reality that we live in. And the reason we worsen today is because we got a white-hot non-farm payroll number showing that the country added an extraordinarily high number of jobs versus expectations. I'll scroll down here to it. Non-farm payrolls in here at 339,000 over the past 30 days against an estimate of 190,000. That is a substantial miss to the high side. Yes, unemployment went up a little bit. Yes, there might have been a slight number in there, a weakness in average hourly earnings. But candidly, that was not the number that we needed, and the Fed's been very clear. They want joblessness to go up, and the exact opposite is what's happening. We also got a little snippet of news that job openings, instead of continuing their steady decline, we saw job openings peak around 12 million. Last reading was down around 9.5 million. We were hoping they were going to come down to around 9.2 as of this past week. The opposite happened there. Job openings went back up over 10 million for the preceding 30 days. Really, all of this pointing to the same picture. It's the same narrative, and that if you're the Federal Reserve and you're trying to bring pain to a job market like ours, good luck. We have almost twice as many open jobs as we have people looking for jobs. We have an enormous percentage of the population that's not even looking for work yet. Perhaps that will change now that the student loan debt is going to be reinstated and people have to resume paying on their student loans towards the end of summer. But for now, the Fed has been unsuccessful in bringing pain to the job market. They are not relenting on that message. That's bad news for bonds. That's bad news for the economy. That's bad news for mortgage-backed securities. And for the first time in my career, we're reporting that an increase in new jobs is bad news for our economy. But that is the reality of it. You only need to look so far as the headlines. U.S. economy adds 339,000 jobs in May, crushing expectations. We now know that Willis Strong non-farm payrolls number forced the Fed to hike again. We were really hoping that the Fed was done with Fed fund rate hikes during this cycle. But if we go to futures trading, I'll try to blow this up a little bit. If we go to futures trading, we can now see a 30% probability that the Fed is going to hike the Fed funds rate at the very next meeting in June. This is June the 14th. So 30% now. Yesterday, we were at 20%. So that non-farm payrolls number bumped us up another 10% probability that the Fed could potentially hike rates yet again at the June meeting here in just a couple of weeks. So we'll keep our eye on that. In the meantime, the good news for mortgage rates, all told, is that it was a positive week for us. We did see mortgage rates decline on average by about 1/4 percentage point in 1 week's time. That's welcome news. We'll take every bit that we can get. In the meantime, we'll keep our eye on jobs because that's what the Fed tells us to do. If you need any help over the weekend, don't hesitate to reach out mark.milam@highlandmtg.com. Thanks.